Right, so we are live. Very good evening to everyone, and thank you for joining in. I'm Thomas John, and I'm from iDream Career. I'm a senior counselor and assistant vice president. And today we have with ourselves Sanat Prasad, who is a third year design student. I have already given a bit of the introduction in the messages and the emails that probably have reached you already. However, Sanat is a student currently pursuing his third year at the B Design course at IIT Bombay. I would let Sanat take us through what his journey was like and tell us a little bit about himself. And towards after Sanat takes us through what he wants to share, we probably will take in Q&A from the audience, and I have a couple of questions also to ask him. So today's weekly career class is about studying design at IIT Bombay, but Sanat will talk about some other elements and his future intentions with his learnings as well. So thank you very much, Sanat, for taking out the time to do this. And over to you. If you want to share your screen right now, you may.
So I've prepared a small presentation.
Cool.
So I'm Sanat Prasad. I'm a student at the IDC School of Design at IIT Bombay. That is the design department we have here. So I'm currently a third year BDes student, and I'm from Delhi. I studied at the Shriram School, Malsari, and in 12th I had science PCM with mechanical drawing as my fifth subject. So initially I'd wanted to study engineering. This had something that had come up as an interest during middle school, and it's something that had continued on. But in 11th grade, which is when you really start getting into the preparation for JE and things, I started to realize it wasn't really my cup of tea. So I was figuring out, trying different things, looking at engineering abroad, looking at architecture, and I also approached iDream Career for some counseling sessions. And eventually I realized that design was a good field that I want to get into. So that's what I'll be talking to you about today. And yeah, aside from design, I'm also a keen musician. There's a picture of me performing at the IIT Bombay annual student music festival called Sur Bahar. And so this, I'll just quickly take you all through my journey of how I got to where I am right now. So as I mentioned, in middle school, I had an interest in engineering. I had an interest in maths, physics, cars. So it seemed quite intuitive to look at engineering. I used to even do a bit on my own just for fun. And so even my teachers, my physics teachers were especially keen on that. They thought I had the aptitude. Some were, even as early as 7th grade, some were suggesting that I should join FitG classes. But my parents at that time knew that that was definitely too early. But the idea stuck, and eventually I joined VMC classes. That's Vidya Mandir classes. I think they're only in Delhi. They're a JE coaching class. So there I started in April 2017, which was the beginning of my 11th grade. And that's when that was my first proper exposure to the world of JE preparation. And I slowly did start to realize from my classes there that I wasn't so keen on it. I had gotten into the founders batch, which is taught by the founders, where they're a bit of extra rigorous, just to ensure that you get higher ranks, better ranks. And so I wasn't so keen. I tried the normal classes, and while they were a bit more my speed, I still wasn't so sure. So I started looking around. I was looking at pursuing engineering abroad, places like Germany and all. But I knew that, yeah, I'd need very good scholarships for that. So I wasn't so sure I'd be able to achieve that. I also looked at architecture, and I did consider design at the time, but I dismissed it and I had dismissed it in the past also, simply because I knew that it requires drawing and I couldn't draw. So I hadn't really thought about it at all until quite a while later. I knew architecture also required drawing, but not to such a degree. So during this confusion, eventually in May 2018, which was towards the beginning of my 12th grade, I looked at iDream Career to try and understand better. I had a couple of counseling sessions, and that's when my counselor told me that it is actually possible to start learning these things even now. This was in the summer of 12th grade, so I had just over half a year before the entrances happened. The design entrances tend to happen in the winter around January. So they're a lot earlier than most other entrance exams. They, instead of happening after the boards, they tend to be around the time you're having pre-boards. So yeah, so they did expose me to the fact that it was possible to prepare even at that stage. And so I took some time to figure out where I did decide to go for design, because I like the creative side of it and I wanted to pursue something creative. So and the more I looked into it, the more I found that this really seemed like something I wanted to do. So in about July, I started attempting to prepare on my own. I bought past exam books from places and tried them on my own. I started to realize that it was a bit difficult, and given the time crunch I had to uh, familiarize with this completely new area, I ended up joining BRDS coaching. They're a countrywide chain of coaching classes specifically for design and architecture. And I joined there. So that's where I started to learn drawing properly from the teachers and getting exposure to the various different entrance exams, NID, UC, the private colleges. And yeah, so that eventually ended up in December 2018, which was towards the end of my 12th grade, being the first entrance exam I gave for a college in Delhi called IIAD. And the following month in January, I had my UC exam, also the NID exam. And by February, the ranks for the UC came out, and I discovered that I got All India rank 2. So I was quite happy about that. And that meant that I would almost certainly be able to get into IIT Bombay, which was one of my top choices. At that time, I'd been a bit unsure about IIT just because I didn't know in an engineering institute how would the design be. And for that reason, actually, I think it's quite good to be able to talk here about it, because we have such small class sizes that it's very hard to find people who can give you the first-hand information about it. Fortunately, I happened to find contacts with a couple of IDC students through people. And so I was able to get an idea of it. I even visited the college, and I was quite happy to see that it was really a proper creative design college, not what part of me was fearing if that would be too engineering based. And so, yeah, I was quite happy with the design department at IIT Bombay. And thanks to my rank, I was able to get in. And at the end of July 2019, I started attending IDC. IDC stands for Industrial Design Center. Since then, they've renamed to IDC School of Design because it's covering more areas of design, but they wanted to keep the name for brand recognition. So there's just share a bit about my experience here. So this is the IDC building. On the left is the facade. On the right is what we call the design circle, where we often meet, have discussions, or just sit around eating snacks. That's the IDC courtyard that it's in. This was the classroom. So they'd ordered new furniture when we just joined, but it hadn't come yet. So for a few months, we actually had banquet tables, and yeah, we have also dogs often visiting our class. And yeah, it's quite nice, quite a natural environment. The IIT Bombay campus is beautiful and very green. It's right next to the Sanjay Gandhi National Park, so it almost spills over into it. We've got a lake right next to the college on one side. So it's a beautiful, very nature-centric environment, which is actually quite odd if you consider the fact that it's actually inside Bombay. And here are some things that go on there. So on the left, we had a demonstration by an artist who'd been invited, and he was showing us portrait making, and he made a portrait of our professor who was standing next to it. As in the center, one of my classmates is drawing outside. We have regular drawing classes. And just on the right, a cat that had walked into my bedroom once. You do get a lot of animals and wildlife in IIT Bombay. And this is just to give you an idea about the kind of work I had. So the first year, you tend to have a lot more of painting, filmmaking, getting you the basic idea about visualizing colors and aesthetics. So just for reference, the drawing on the right is something I made in at the end of 11th grade when I first started trying to draw for my, at that time I was looking at architecture. So I just drawn a plant, and about a year and a half on, you can see these two things I made. So I'm definitely not the best at drawing or painting, but the rate of progression is very real and it is very much achievable. So this is some of my more current work. So on the left, so I'm more inclined towards product design. There are quite a few different streams in design, and several of which are offered at IIT Bombay. So I'm interested in product design. And so here you have on the left was a toy design that I made for a parrot. You push it along, and as the wheels move, it even flaps its wings. On the right was a group project where we were looking at packaging designs for Indian handicraft products. So here we were looking at packaging for Bidri ware. That's a style of metalwork from Telangana. And then I'm also the design manager at the IIT Bombay student racing team. So part of my duties in that involve livery design as well as being the chief designer for our quarterly magazine. And also during my summer mentorship with a product designer, I worked on knife designs based on the styles of various product designers from around the world. And on the right, just as a fun exercise and a metalworking exercise, I made this small sculpture of an eye on my own. A lot of this actually, in fact, been done at home, given the fact that we've been in lockdown for so long. So yeah, this was, I just thought I'd give a brief overview of my work and my experience at IIT Bombay. And now I'm sure there are questions where we can go into more detail.
Great. So thank you for sharing all of that. It was really lovely to see, and also understand what it is like being at IIT Bombay. I had a couple of questions now. Going back to what you had mentioned earlier about your school life, you did mention that you were into playing bass and you were not too much into drawing.
Yeah.
What were your favorite subjects when you were in school in 11th and 12th?
So 11th and 12th, it was more English and mechanical drawing because
Okay.
at 11th you have this sudden jump. So before that, it used to be PCM, maths, physics, especially, and also chemistry. And then, which is part of why I was so interested in engineering. And then you'll be aware of this sudden jump that you have and very different kind of syllabus that you have in 11th and 12th. And
Right.
I realized that that wasn't exactly what I'd envisioned, and I had a lot of trouble keeping up with that. So from that point of view, my interests actually ended up changing, which is part of the reason I decided to go into a more creative field rather than a more technical field.
Right. So bearing that in mind, what do you have to say to students who feel that drawing and sketching is a prerequisite to getting into design?
It is. It definitely is. There's no way around it. So, in fact, when I gave UC, which was in 2019, that was the last year that UC didn't have a drawing section. So, it was based purely on the logical reasoning and general thinking based questions that they used to have. So, the very year after that, they introduced a drawing section. I actually joke that it's because of me that they saw me come in and they realized they needed to filter through drawing.
Okay.
So yeah, so now it also has a compulsory drawing section, and all other major design entrances already had that. So the UC system is slightly different to the NID system.
Mhm.
NID is what broadly most of the private colleges are also based on. So there they have an entrance exam where you have, again, some logical reasoning, some basic general knowledge, English, maths. So those are all MCQs, and you have a drawing section, which is now how UC has also become. Except NID has a second layer of filtering, which is they shortlist people based on their performance in the I forgot the term for it, but the design exam. and they invite the shortlisted people to the campus for a studio test where they have studio tasks which are live to just see what your method of working is, how you can work on the spot in the moment. And some colleges also have group discussions to again assess similar ideas. So the only studio test I gave was the one for IIAD, that's the Indian Institute of Art and Design, that's in Delhi. So I gave that. I gave the NID exam, but I didn't get shortlisted for the studio test. I applied to several other private colleges where I did qualify for the studio test, but by that point I got my UC result and decided that I preferred that, so I didn't attend any of those studio tests.
All right. So there was an interesting question that came in, which is, are BTech students allowed to actually sit through design classes if they want to?
So this is the IIT Bombay, and I'd imagine all IITs, they have a system for minors. So you can take minor courses in design, and I think some of the design courses are also offered as electives. So there again, so you apply, you have different professors who offer different projects, and based on student demand, they decide which ones will be offered. So you apply, and then after that they decide, and then it carries on as a semester-long project.
Okay. So you kind of answered my next question as well, which is what are the areas that are tested in the entrance exams? So I'll skip to that one. I'd like to understand also that on a year-by-year basis, how is the curriculum at IIT Bombay structured for design? What are the focus areas in each semester per se?
So yeah, so I'll talk about IIT Bombay first, and again I'll mention the differences to NID, because again most other colleges in India are also based on the NID system. Right. So in IIT Bombay for BDes, they don't actually have official streams like product design, fashion design, or anything. It's just the Bachelor of Design, and they basically consider the first 2 years to be a foundation years where there are compulsory courses, and they take you through a broad, give you a lot of exposure in different areas, help you develop a very broad base of skills. And then the third year onwards, you start focusing more on your specific interests through electives. So basically you have, this is for all the years up to the third year. It's divided, instead of having semester long classes, you have one class that's held as a 3-week module. So for those 3 weeks, you have pretty much only this class. And so it's a very focused way of working on that. And so you'll have one professor taking one module for 3 weeks. At the end of that, we'll have a different one with a different focus. You might have one on fundamentals of art and design, then one on product design, one on cinematography. So they take you through that. There are a couple of additional courses that run throughout the semester. So the drawing course, we had a writing course, and some extra skills like pottery. So those are offered as electives. But broadly, you have this 3-week module system, and at the end of the semester, you have a 6-week design studio project, which is your end semester project for that semester. Okay. So yeah. So for the first 2 years, these courses are preset. There are a couple of places where you have a choice of one course or the other, but mostly they're decided just to give you a very broad area. And then the third year onwards, they offer, each of these 3-week slots has choices. So accordingly, you decide what your areas of interest are. So being a interest in product design, I select my courses accordingly. And yes, we select those courses, and also those end semester projects, we often have freedom to choose a particular area or a particular way in which we want to go about the project, which again deals with our area of interest. And in the fourth year, you have a P1 and a P2. So basically, each semester is just one full long 4-month project. So the first one's called the P1, the second one's called the P2, where you come up with a basic project idea, you pitch it to a professor you want to work under, and then they guide you through that project for the entire semester. And every month you have a jury where you present your progress and you get that feedback and you continue with that till the end of the semester.
All right. So, post this course, have you already planned out how your journey post this course is going to look like, or are you still thinking about it? What's that looking like after third year?
A bit of both. So right now, actually, one thing I've wanted to do ever since, especially after COVID and having spent over a year and a half working from home, one thing I felt was I've missed out a lot of the hands-on work and the studio work that, especially in product design, tends to be quite important.
Right.
So because that's so, IDC also offers a dual degree program where basically at the end of the third year, the top 10 highest scoring students in the class have the opportunity to do a fifth year in a specific stream and graduate with a master's degree. So right now my target is to stay in the top 10 so that I have the opportunity to stay an extra year where I get more of that experience that I've missed this past year and a half. And also, yeah, it's a good opportunity to get a master's degree in a shorter time. And IDC it's a good institute and it's known for product design. So I'm definitely happy continuing here. So again, that's something I'm working towards. Beyond that, I'm open to exploring various things. And this is something I've heard from a lot of people that it's good to explore even after you graduate. You can work at different studios or different companies, get experience in different areas. There's actually an interesting saying that one of my professors had that uh, a designer is basically a jack of all trades and a master of design. So as you experience so many different areas, you develop that sense such that you can apply it anywhere. And obviously, experience and the minor details you develop through working in that area. But there's no wasted work if you work in a different field because all that develops your creativity, develops your knowledge, and helps you go into you can apply it across many fields. In design, even though it has many different fields and can be divided into many streams, it's a very interdisciplinary area.
Are there any particular industries you're looking forward to work in?
So in product design, I'm mainly looking at product and manufacturing, but you have various industries where design is prominent. It's actually sometimes it's not so visible, but it's actually there in many industries. One area where it's particularly strong right now is the area of software and web design, because again, in the digital age, you have a lot of websites, apps, everything's just grown a lot. So interaction design and user experience design are fields that are doing especially well right now. But again, that it's not like that's the only place where design is limited. That's just due to the broader trends in how technology is going. Those fields tend to be stronger right now. So you have interaction design in terms of the user interface, the apps, and these days voice control is a major thing, gesture control. So you have a lot of these things. And again, you can also have a lot of these interdisciplinary things. Even with the product, say you have a washing machine, there also you're designing a panel where the person is interacting, they're figuring out the settings and all. So again, it's you need to work and you need to have an understanding of all the areas.
Right. And do you feel that for design colleges, like usually career guidance is quite extensive in certain schools in India? You also, I'm guessing, have a placement cell in IIT Bombay.
Yeah, we do.
Right. So do you feel that even after students who have completed a course that they really love and are really sure of how they want to use it going forward, is there a need for even career planning and guidance at this stage for you?
To a certain degree, but I don't know how structured that can be, because again, there's so many different avenues you can explore as a working designer. So you can work at a company in a corporate job, you can work for an MNC, you can work at a studio, and studios, they work on a smaller scale. So you have a very large variety of the ways in which they work and the kind of work they do.
Right.
And you can also look at starting your own studio. You can look at studying abroad. You can look at doing masters. So there are many career paths, and a lot of it is what works for you especially. And yeah, I do feel it does require a lot of experience in these areas to be able to guide you. So that's where that's one place where it's a bit difficult to get advice from professors, because the field changes so quickly that even a professor who was working in the field 10 years ago but then after that has retired from work to be a professor, they can't give you a very holistic picture of what it's like. So you need to keep in contact with professors, alumni, senior students, working professionals.
So essentially, mentors who have a constant connect with the industry would be a good source. Okay, understood. So, my one of my last questions for this session would be, what direction do you see design moving into the future? And how, apart from the ones areas that you mentioned about gesture control, you mentioned about usage of design online and website design and applications. Do you see, where do you see design moving ahead from this point? Given that these are the things that we've achieved, or as a race we've achieved these milestones. Where do you see design moving beyond this point? Do you see a design course changing drastically in the next 10 years, even more than what it is right now?
It's difficult to judge. I don't think the course itself would change a lot. It's just that as the technologies and as the world around us keeps changing and advancing, the field of design also adapts accordingly. And yeah, so the same creativity, the same ideas you apply in different areas. So a while back, the focus was website design, then it moved into app design. Now it's moving into things like Alexa and Siri, and it has been in that area also for a while. So here I'm just talking specifically about the interaction design part, but since we're discussing that, so it's more this design is sort of an entity that tends to exist in many areas, and so it just moves with the direction that that area is going, and it adapts. So
Makes sense.
yeah, so even designers like our professors, they learned design in a time where computers barely existed, but still a lot of them through learning, through adapting, they're able to work in interaction design, they're able to work in typography. So yeah, I mean, one of my professors, he was saying that he worked in typography at the time when you had Windows, DOS, and things where you had to program coordinates for designing the shape of a font. And that has changed so drastically now, where you have things, you have special design tools for typography. But you just, as a designer, you don't need to keep up with the times, but I think that exists in a lot of fields. And yeah, so it's the same ideas, the same way of thinking that you apply to different things.
Cool. So another question that's come in is, are you allowed to collaborate with engineering students for self-initiated projects at
Yeah,
school?
you definitely can. It a lot of it depends on your own initiative, how you make contacts, how you work with them. So as I mentioned, I'm working in the IIT Bombay racing team.
Right.
So through that, I work a lot with people in the engineering side, with things like looking at the bodyworks, the aerodynamics. I don't understand so much of the technical part of it, but we still have that collaboration in the work. So they'll contact me in looking at things like how can we make within the constraints of the structure and the aerodynamics, how can we make the car look a bit nicer, or how can we appeal to the sponsors more. So you look at livery design through that. How do the sponsors get good visibility? And then we also, for the marketing side of it, we work with them also. So there's a lot of opportunity for collaboration.
Mhm.
And IIT in general, it's such a large institute. There's so many people. There are always interesting things going on. It depends on you personally, how much initiative you take, how much you go out there, how much you find out, and how much you participate in them. There are people who barely have any contact and any experience working with the engineers. There are people who even, I have a friend who's even working in the engineering team in the racing team.
Right.
So I tried that. I wasn't able to keep up with the science of it so much because a lot of it's based on things that they learn in the BTech course. he managed to keep up. So he actually is worked very heavily in the engineering and manufacturing side as well.
Right. So one last question before we can close today is that how should one go about choosing a placement? I mean, someone who is like you, who is currently coming to the probably the last phase of your undergraduate degree. Should one only look at a larger organization to begin with, or I know that you haven't started working per se yet, but what is the common thought within you and your batchmates? Is it, do I want to go and work for a large design firm? Do I prefer to work in a smaller studio? What are your targets looking like?
So there's actually not much consensus in that. There are certain disadvantages and advantages in general. There are some that are field specific. So one broad thing you can say is that you definitely generally tend to get paid a lot better if you go into a corporate job, initially speaking. But then also we are working in a much larger organization, so you may have slightly less creative freedom, or you just need to work with their specific way of working or their design language already. So depending on what you prefer, and then also field specifically. So people who are working in interaction design, and they have very good opportunities in corporates and MNCs especially. You have people who are getting internships for interaction design in Google and Microsoft and big companies. Whereas for product design, you don't get such opportunities because a lot of MNCs, they have the product design and manufacturing side of it abroad, where again, because it's a more physical area of work, so they need to base it accordingly. Whereas with interaction and experience design, that can be more spread around the world.
So, like you mentioned, R&D is now based more outside. Do you see any positive changes when I say that? I mean, do you see some of the organizations now moving to India, looking at the Indian talent pool and putting them in R&D?
Yeah, they have been doing so. Again, it's just been a slower process because, like I said, it's a more physical, more capital intensive process when you look at manufacturing and R&D. So just because there's just a bit more inertia in terms of how it's slowly moving here, whereas the digital side of it moved a bit faster.
Right. So I'm guessing I've come to the end of the questions that I had. But yeah, really insightful in a very, very short and concise format. And I can't thank you enough for making the time to do this. We'd like to be able to hear from you again, probably in a couple of years when you're, completed your course and you're started to work. But thank you very much again to make a time on Saturday. And again, for all the audience here, if you have any questions, you can certainly post it here. I think I can just drop you a couple of messages if I have questions coming in later. But thank you for preparing all the content for us. It was really lovely to see, the college campus, the animals that you that you studied with. It was fun to understand all of that. And once again, for all the viewers who are actually viewing us, if you require help to be able to prepare for a design course, or if you want to understand whether design is a course for you and you think you need a career guidance counselor, you certainly can go to idreamcareer.com and you can engage with one of our representatives who would assign a counselor to you. Once again, thank you very much, Sanat, and we hope to see you again. Do keep in touch.
Yeah, sure.
All the best.
Thank you. Shall I go?
Yes, please.